Good morning, everybody. The workshop for May 3rd, 2022, our school board workshop. Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's try this once again. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our school board workshop. We will be talking about policies today. Before I get started, we'll go over a couple things. Mr. Porter will be indicating who goes in what order, and we also have 3 people online. We have member Vaughn, who's on her way. She's virtual, and we also have member Snively and member Hahn. I just want to make sure everybody's online. Can we do a check on that, please, Pablo? Okay, great. And before we get started, I also want to welcome everybody and thank all the cabinet members and all the staff that are here today. And we also have several guests. I want to first introduce one of the guests that we have today, which is Haley Vandal. She will be interning with us, or with me this summer, as well as Kristen Davis. She is a freshman at UF, was last year our valedictorian at Sickles High School, and she was very persistent in contacting me and wanting to intern, and I think that's what it really takes. So I'm really excited that she'll be working with us this summer, as well as looking. And one of the things that she said she was really interested in is policy, so I invited her today. Since this is our first policy workshop of this year, we will also have another one later on in August. So before we get started, we wanted to quickly go over the policy development activity worksheet that Kristen Davis provided us. So we'll just go over the first 4 questions, and this can guide our policy not just today, but for the future policy as we bring policy, as the staff brings policy to us, as well as school board members bringing policy. Number 1 is, what are the sources for this policy need? Generate a list of stakeholders who might have a concern about this issue and wish to address this policy topic. What concerns might stakeholders have? And the second one is, how high does this issue rank in terms of current policy needs and why? Next is, what data and information will need to be gathered to render a policy decision? List all you can brainstorm. And finally, what will be some of the determining factors for continuing the process of writing a school district policy on this topic? So these are the 4 types of policies that we want to look at. And throughout the summer and throughout the year, you know, one of our biggest jobs as school board members is working on policy and bringing policy and making sure that some of the policy is clear and it's not repetitive. So we will continue to look at that. So with that in mind, I also wanted to thank Kristen Davis for all her hard work, as well as Jim Porter for his hard work for putting this policy workshop together. And I know Kristen Davis has some exciting news coming in for the federal government.
Thank you. Good morning. Just wanted to take the opportunity, a little point of privilege with the Chair Combs and Superintendent Davis to share an update we received actually from Congresswoman Kathy Castor's office. So as many of you know, at the federal level, they did bring back earmarks, which are essentially like appropriations requests, which we've all, I know, discussed here. And we, the district, submitted 2 requests. One was for the Workforce Initiative, the Building Campus Tomorrow, for upwards of $2.3 million. And the other request was in partnership with the Tampa Museum of Art and the Strass Center to provide direct, purposeful opportunities for our students in the Transformation Network at these arts and cultures establishments. We just learned last night that, well, let me first say that probably about 90 requests are submitted to congressional offices each opportunity, and they can only submit 15 projects. And so we again submitted 2, which we were hoping for at least 1. We did learn last night that both of our requests are being selected and submitted as part of Congresswoman Castor's 15, which is huge. So next steps is that these projects will go forward in the federal level as part of the budget subcommittee, and then following that will be the larger full appropriations House committee, and we'll kind of see from there. But we're hopeful. We are also optimistic that perhaps being an election year might be an advantage for us, because they may want to get the budget passed and on time before the November election, which would be great. So thank you for the opportunity to share that update with you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davis, and thank you so much to Congresswoman Castor for always advocating for Hillsborough County schools and all public schools, her and her entire family. They're just amazing, and that's such wonderful news. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and begin with our first policy, which will be 6320.0 through the apprentice, and this policy is a revision and was brought forth by Member Gray and Member Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. This is a policy on apprentices. You'll recall that we considered it last year, and we hit pause because there were some questions about the legality of going forward, given legislation that had passed in 2021. We researched that issue thoroughly. We've consulted with the county and the city, who both enacted very similar apprenticeship programs, and we modeled our apprenticeship policy after both the county and the city. Kevin Barber is here from the Ironworkers Local Union, and it basically is a very comprehensive policy that will bring apprentices into our projects that we with the school district and allow for a workforce development in the different crafts that are represented here. So the policy requires that at least 12% of the labor hours on construction projects be performed by apprentices. And there's a whole series of criteria that go forward in here. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Perez and Ms. Gray if they want to add anything. But this is a policy, again, that has been enacted by the city and the county, and we're bringing it forward for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Member Gray, Member Perez, who would like to go first?
Go ahead, Member Perez, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking over the policy, and I just have a couple of questions. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. On line 65, it says prior to entering into a construction contract, the district must receive documentation from the bidder. Can we also put subcontractors into there as well? Add that. And then it says here on line 67, that for the duration of the construction contract, as the same way may be extended through the assurance of change orders or through the means at least 12% of the labor. Can we change that to say 12% for each craft? Is that a possibility? Yes. Okay. Thank you. And then down at line 89 and 90, the superintendent determines that applying the policy to the construction project is not in the best interest of the district. Can we also add that the superintendent would provide the school board a written explanation as to why? That way we all, as a board, have a written explanation as to why there was a determination that it's not in the best interest. And then 94, line 94, the 12%, again, adding in there per each craft, requirement of labor hours per each craft. And then also on line 22, 5% of the total cost of labor hours on the construction project. 122. Yeah. 122. And that would be 40 CTE programs. In there, correct. If we can add that to include that, please. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't mind? Those were just the revisions I would like to see added to this.
I believe Mr. Farkas wants to speak to that.
Yeah.
And the superintendent.
Mr. Farkas?
I appreciate it. Sorry, I was finishing up a conference call for our district-wide rebounding that lasted a little bit longer, so that's why I wanted to make sure I was here at the beginning, so I apologize. First of all, from the operations side of the house, we very much are in favor of apprenticeship programs. It's a huge part of what we're doing. We hear it on a regular basis that there's not enough subcontractors to do the work that we need, so we're a huge supporter of that. My only concern is the cost that is passed on by passing the apprenticeship policy. Are there enough workers to do 12% of the work? And if there's not, what does part two of that look like? So we would love to have a threshold. We'd love to have an encouragement program like we have with supplier diversity. I think there's a bunch of things that we would support in that part of it too. My only concern would be an unintended consequence of having a 12% requirement and then someone has to go out and get additional work or workers that don't exist right now. Right now, we're struggling with having more than one subcontractor bid on things. We're trying to get at least 2 or 3. So it's not a problem I have with the program. My only caution would be to the board is the cost part of it. Is it going to increase cost? When we talk to local trade unions and talk to the subcontracting world or the construction manager world, that's one of their pushbacks is we believe that it's going to be very hard to find that much work, that many workers that will be there, and then what's the cost increase going to be? There's different levels of apprenticeship, as I'm sure you all are aware. Some of them can work on their own. Other have to have someone supervising them. So that you're basically doing double labor is what you're paying for on that part of it too. Again, we support the program. We need them. That's a future worker. Like I said, I've just wanted to make sure I point out there may be an unintended cost to that part of it too. And that's why historically, Mr. Brooks on his side of the Housing, Career, Technical Education, and myself have been concerned with it. I think there is language in this policy that's better than some of the previous ones because it's much more inclusive of apprenticeship programs. The first policy writing we saw was it didn't include our own programs, at Irwin and places like that. We want to make sure that our own programs we have are part of that. But I do think that we might need to have some language for an out, for lack of a better word, for if there's not that many workers that we can't reach that 12% threshold, that there's an out. Whether there's a written policy or we have to notify the board or whatever that case may be, there's got to be a way that we've got to notify you, this is going to cost you this much money because there's not that many workers that are in that field to do it. Again, don't want to be against the board. I just don't want to, I wouldn't be doing my job if I wouldn't tell you I'm concerned about the increase in cost for that. I hope that makes sense.
So in the apprenticeship program, so let me ask this question. During the pandemic, construction never stopped. As a matter of fact, construction was at its highest height. So, and these crafts continued working. As a matter of fact, according to Irwin, the industry was going into the classrooms scouting for our students.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct?
100%.
100%. Okay. So this 12%, I see it as a doable because right now construction, it's not stopping. It's not. Plumbers are making. I was told the other day that a plumber came out to fix a plumbing situation, and for 30 minutes he made $500. I can't bill somebody $500 for 30 minutes worth of work. And our kids, coming out of school, going to college, who cannot afford, this is a pathway to their future. So 12% out of our students, 240,000 students, I don't believe 12% is a lot. As a matter of fact, I think we're lowballing it when we look at 12% for each craft. When we're looking at, looking at our student population here in Hillsborough County. Hillsborough County, Tampa Bay area right now, the nation has Tampa right now is growing, and as a matter of fact, the housing market here has increased at 48% according to the national statistics. So I don't see that this is going to be a problem, Superintendent. From what I'm looking at statistics, when I see what happened during the pandemic, and when I'm looking at, what's being called for in these areas, I'm just saying.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Davis. I know you had some comments.
Yes, ma'am. First and foremost, we appreciate the focus on apprenticeships, as Mr. Farkas said, and Ms. Perez says this is important for our students that we serve every single day to go into this initiative and go on these programs to really have real-time opportunity to grow and develop. I think the issue becomes that Mr. Farkas highlighted with it could be an increase of cost because the additional recruiting, additional apprenticeships to come on board to especially small corporations, small companies, small agencies could have an additional cost because of the supervision. And at the same token, we want to make certain we aren't hurting minority corporations and agencies as well that may not have sufficient staff to be able to do this and implement this. There's a lot of opportunity, as I agree with Mrs. Perez, for construction as we continue to develop, especially in the Hillsborough region. The issue is that as we continue to struggle to find qualified vendors and them have a workforce, this may further handcuff us, and this is where lines 89 and 90 are very important, related to our staff, myself as superintendent, to identify why this policy may not be able to be implemented, because we may not be able to hit the threshold for sufficient number of minority agencies, or also not being able to have corporations that are able to hit that 12%. We understand that 12% may be not a sufficient time looking at the 100% scale of the construction work, but to some small business it may be a significant amount of time and money, and we can't afford to incur that additional cost that may come its way. And I think that I'd love to know what the county and the city has, if they've seen some type of negative impact for implementing this, or a seamless transition. And if they've been great in this process, then we will listen and learn from them. And I think the other thing is just us really just trying to pay attention to this process.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Davis. Member Gray?
You have Ms. Vaughn and Ms. Snively want to speak.
Well, my recollection of this being brought forward to the board not long ago, and knowing that it's solid, the idea that the apprenticeship program, which in my mind is it's just like the seal of good housekeeping seal of approval. You've got the Florida Department of Education, the Career Division of Career and Adult Education Apprenticeship. You've got so many documented authorities that suggest and prove that this is a viable, and that's putting it mildly, this is a very critical type of, and I don't want to compare this with an agency, because I know we have ABC and other agencies. This what we're dealing with is a very highly professional, lifelong learning program from the high school to that student's future for until they have a living will, even until that student until the decease. To me it's the gold standard. So okay, and I think most of us agree, but when we look at 12% or 11 or 10%, and we suggest, Mr. Farkas, that that may be problematic, I will remind you that during the State of the Union, which we actually, Member Combs was there, when we compared 20 regions across the nation, Hillsborough County, Tampa, is one of the most prolifically growing areas in the United States. And any realtor or any construction person who doesn't think that they're busy or will be busy is out of their minds, because they're going to be, construction. I used to work for Sherwin-Williams. We had a height of it in 1970s and 80s, and when it gets going, and Mr. Farkas, you know this, there's just so many positions available, too many, and I would like to see us prepared. Also, if the county and the city are finding this, and thank you, Superintendent Davis, for mentioning their success, I don't know why, as a school board, we would not want to mirror the same type of policy, seeing that they are, they're coming about this more and more successfully. In other words, we can doubt statistics, and we can say, well, maybe it will be costly, which of course every one of us on the board are very aware of that factor, but that's a may. We're in hypotheticals, and I would have rather, Mr. Farkas, you would say to this board at this time that we will have probably only maybe a 10%, or give us the actual data, than putting doubt in the minds of us when you don't have the actual facts. That is so important. you have people in this room who have done a lot of research. One of them is absolutely in charge of apprenticeship programs. They have the data. They know what's going on. Why are we suggesting that we know more than them, who are absolutely out in the field and in charge of a huge apprenticeship program? So, and thank you, Mr. Porter, for reminding us that this was brought forward. I think this is the second, was this the second time during a policy workshop? And, you know, we've gone through all this before. I thank Member Perez for doing the wordsmithing, because absolutely I want the superintendent to have a rationale statement if there's a debate or anything of that nature. Absolutely we have to consider subcontracts, because contracts and subcontracts, every one of us who have a house built know the amount of lineage building takes. That's just a residential. And absolutely when we say 5% of the total labor hours, I mean, we need to also remember the CTE for our students. So lastly, I don't buy into the idea that Tampa is not going to grow in terms of keeping this percentage in a reality check. I think we are underestimating the growth that we will be seeing in terms of construction. And that is, you know, I'm county-wide, and so is Karen. I see Waimama. We were just there yesterday. I can't even drive by any road anymore that I used to grow up in without seeing a huge housing development coming up. And that's just in one South County. So I think that's enough said. You see where I'm at. And thank you, Member Combs, for allowing me to go on and on. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gray. Member Vaughn, or did you want to say something, Mr.
Member
Porter?
Vaughn is actually a minute away. She'd like to go last because she's
Okay, great. Member Snively?
Lively, and then Hahn, and then Vaughn,
Okay.
and then Perez.
Okay. Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you. So I have some of the same concerns that were shared by Mr. Farkas and Mr. Davis. And so I wanted to also say that I too appreciate and support all the apprenticeship programs that exist for our students out there. It certainly creates a wonderful career path and many opportunities for our students through the apprenticeship programs. I do get concerned, as they do, requiring a certain percentage with a policy. And I think that as board members, I think we understand that we want to certainly promote the apprentice programs and support them as much as we can, but you're hearing from operations, our operations partners, Chris Farkas and Addison Davis. These are the gentlemen and the people and the leaders who are going to have to figure out how to implement this program, and they're the ones who can see the hurdles and they can see the hazards of putting something like this policy into place. And so it concerns me that we may not be listening to the people who actually have to implement the policy. I think the desire is genuine. I think it's it's a great idea about boxing us in to a certain percentage. And I also get concerned about what Mr. Farkas and Davis said. Two things that stood out to me in their comments were costs, creating potentially an increase in costs of products and services, mainly services, but then also how is this going to impact our minority apprenticeship or minority and suppliers of our services through diversity. So, is this going to negatively impact those two particular issues? The third thing is, I don't know if this has been brought up. I don't think it has in our conversation yet, but there is a statute, a Florida statute, that specifically says that local municipalities are not allowed, or they're prohibited from recruiting, training, hiring employees from a designated, restricted, or single source. And that's Florida Statute 255.0992 under Public Works Projects and prohibited governmental action. So I'm curious how the county and the city are having their program avoid this particular Florida statute applying to them. I don't know if that's something that Mr. Porter can look into further, or maybe Mr. Farkas or Mr. Davis already know how they're working around this particular statute. But it specifically says that we're prohibited from doing something like this. Can anyone respond to that, please?
Mr. Porter, can you please respond to that statute?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Ms. Snively. That was the reason we hit pause the last time this came about, because that was a new statute. So we conferred with the county attorney's office and the city attorney's office, and if you'll go to lines 86 through 88, this policy will not apply if A, it is prohibited by or in conflict with federal or state law or the terms of a federal or state grant applicable to the construction project. Excuse me. So the way the city and the county are interpreting that, and I think it's the right interpretation, if there are state contracts or state dollars that would make this not applicable, it would not apply. But that's the provision that's embedded in the policy that allows this to go forward. And there has to be an analysis on what type of funding the project is using in order to go forward.
Thank you for clarifying that and also adding that to the language. Is there anything else, Member Snively?
Well, my question is, I mean, how are these not public dollars that are being used? And so, I'm to understand that this particular the policy through the county and the city are being challenged right now because the definition of the dollars, the state dollars that are coming through, fall within that statute definition. So is that correct, that they're being challenged right now? The policy through the state and the county are being challenged because of this particular statute?
I'm not aware of that, but I can tell you that there's been no definitive court action on it and no definitive answer. And so if that is something that is happening and it's challenged and the language needs to be changed, then obviously we'd have to change our policy if this passes.
Yeah. Well, I will say, based on the comments from Mr. Farkas and Mr. Davis, I have the same concerns. So I'm not going to be able to approve or support this particular policy at this time until I think we can either come to a compromise or just not make I just don't like to box this into a percentage requirement for the apprenticeship. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Snively, and we're clear where your stance is, and we also are clear that there is language that will make sure that we are covered in case that does come up into litigation or any questions like that. Member Hahn?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much, Member Combs, for making the accommodation for me to participate virtually today. I appreciate that consideration. Look, I've been around the construction industry my whole life, and I firsthand appreciate the apprenticeship programs. My brother went through an apprenticeship program, had a wonderful career as an electrician in New York City. My father went through an apprenticeship program as in construction, and so I see firsthand how these programs are so important. So not to take away from that in regard to my comments right now, but when I look at policy or even agenda items, I tend to think in my mind, what problems are we solving through policy? And, when I first looked at this, and if you look at the first paragraph in the policy, it speaks to the shortage of skilled labor. And it implies that this is going to be part of the solution to increasing recruitment into apprenticeship programs, whether they're ours or out in the community. And, that's really not the intent of this. This is not about recruitment. Recruitment efforts aren't done by, mandating workforce limits. They're done through creating really strong programs and marketing those programs to get the word out. So I'm not really comfortable with that first paragraph implying that this is part of our plan to recruit into apprenticeship programs, because I'm not seeing the connection there. But further, again, when I think about problem solved, and also as a board member, obviously policy and fiscal responsibility are our main responsibilities. And I do share the concerns because it's not solving any problems for us fiscally. It's not helping to make us more fiscally stable. And I go back to Mr. Farkas's comments because I had some of the same concerns, and I was actually going to ask the question, but he already kind of beat me to it. And when Member Gray said, where are the facts around Mr. Farkas's comments? Well, I'll say this, there are facts because Mr. Farkas and his staff know procurement. That's their wheelhouse. They know that when you limit the number of selected people to bid on projects, you're not getting all the qualified bids. And in turn, that limits getting the best bid. And so that speaks to us, maybe, speaks to his concerns of paying more when you're putting a 12%, and I don't know where 12% came from. I don't know what kind of industry standard that is. At this time, this board, the majority of the board, voted on, going out to the taxpayers for, property tax. And then now we're creating policy that really doesn't demonstrate fiscal responsibility. That's a mixed message now you're sending the community. So, I'm concerned about that. And then making statements like this is the gold standard. I'd like to see the data around that. I mean, how do you make a blanket statement like this is the gold standard and 12% is the magic number? So I'm concerned about those things. I get that the city and county have a policy on this, but that doesn't mean it's a good policy for our district. And there's a lot of things the city and the county do that might be great for their procurement and their what they're doing, but I don't want to say, well, it's good for them, it's good for us. I mean, that's not logical. And the last thing I will say before I turn my time over is, recruitment into programs and mandating the numbers around procurement is not going to increase apprenticeships or even opportunities for jobs for our students. The demand in the workforce is going to organically do that. If there's that much need, and I appreciate the comments of Member Perez, she's right, there's all this need. But what's going to actually secure jobs for our students is not the 12%. That's really arbitrary. It's the fact that there's such a high demand, and that, to the benefit of our students, is organically happening. So I'm sorry, but all the points that have been brought up, I just don't see, I'm very concerned around building policy to mandate the workforce needs. So, I'm not comfortable with the 12%. I think there needs to be some kind of compromise around this policy before I can support it. But, I just want to be clear that I absolutely understand the need for more apprentices, but just because you make it 12% doesn't mean you're going to have more apprentices. I mean, if that was the case, we could say we have a policy that by, the first of the year, all of our teacher vacancies are going to be filled. Well, that doesn't mean they're going, if the people aren't there, if there's not enough people to hire, it's not going to be filled no matter what percentage you put on this. So the whole idea of recruitment, just also, there's not that connection for me. But I appreciate the time to speak and the accommodation today. Thank you, Member Combs.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Thank you. And we know where you stand. Thank you. Member Vaughn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate the discussion on this. I guess what I want to start with is first of all, thank you, Member Gray and Member Perez, for bringing this forward. But is that I just don't agree with a lot of the conversation that we've had. When we're in our boardroom and we look at the wall, it says preparing students for life. And without a doubt, if we have more apprentices that we're hiring, we are going to have more people who want to sign up for apprenticeship once they see the benefit of how that enriches their lives. Not only are we looking to give our students jobs, but actual career pathways that give them benefits, access to benefits that give them, actual state certified training. We want to make sure that we're not just giving our students jobs, but an opportunity for the best career for their future. These programs, I've gone out to these programs. I don't know how many other board members, who are having conversation have gone out and met with these apprenticeship programs and talked to people in these programs, the students who it's benefit and changed their lives and the trajectory of their lives and what that means for them. And as we have all this conversation and we get all this money from federal and state dollars to expand our workforce, we need to look not just at the bottom line, how much students are making, but what career paths have the most opportunity and can set them up for the most success. And I completely understand where, there might be some hesitation about whether we can fill the 12%, although I think 12% is minuscule, and I don't really understand, where people are concerned this is going to cut off minority opportunity unless we're not really expanding the opportunity enough to where it can be competitive with this apprenticeship and minorities. As well as, when Dr. Hahn talks about when we cut off opportunities for the bidding process, that's what we've been doing nonstop with our piggybacks to make sure that we're going ahead and we're getting the best price, right? Every piggyback that we do with another county or another school district or somewhere else is a closed opportunity for people in our county to bid on that and let us know what that's going to look like. So we've already at different opportunities gone out and closed off the opportunity to bid with, what are there, 20 piggybacks that come back on an agenda item almost every single board meeting? And here we have an opportunity to open up this apprenticeship. I go out to Chamberlain High School. I go out to my other high schools, and they're desperate for something like this. They sign their kids up to all the other opportunities that we have, whether it's through career, the other career opportunities, and they say that those are great, but that only hits a certain point of their population. Their kids want to go into welding. Their kids want to go into construction. Their kids want to go into the trade opportunities, but they don't either know what that looks like or the benefits that it could make for their life. If we want to talk about preparing students for life, what we need to do is make sure we're creating policy that offers as many students as possible the best trajectory going forward. And expanding this is absolutely the right thing to do. And that's why the county has done it and why the city has done it. And they may not be in the world of education, but they are looking out to benefit our county and our city and make sure that we have the strongest, most qualified workforce with the most opportunity. And I think if there are fears that this is going to hurt us, because obviously, yes, we want to be financially fiscal, we are going out to the community and saying that we need money, we can reevaluate this policy and tweak it as things go on. If we come to August, if we come to the next policy cycle, and we have Mr. Farkas come back and say, yes, the concern was real, we're not able to meet this mandate, or it's causing us financial hardship, we can amend this policy. Policies aren't forever. So, I think let's go ahead, let's try this, let's see. Everybody has a different opinion. Some people think it will expand our workforce, some people won't, and we can always amend that. That's a great thing about policy workshops. So I fully support this. Again, I thank my fellow board members who have brought this forward. I can't wait, and I hope this passes, to see the opportunity that it brings our students to understand and learn about these amazing apprenticeship opportunities. And we're growing, and construction and building is going to be the fastest growing marketplace that we have, and making sure that we're setting our students up to be prepared for this is, I think, our duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member Perez?
Thank you. So opening the programs in middle school towards trade, many students who fall under the underserved and underrepresented category are the ones who will end up coming into these trades. In the middle schools, many of the students who become discouraged are at the age of 16, and they end up dropping out of school and end up in the school to prison pipeline. And these are the students that we could capture at that time in middle school going into high school. But waiting till the last minute for recruitment for the apprenticeship programs right now, surely it will never work. We'll keep having this conversation that we won't get this 12%, that we won't, that it will be a waste of funding. So on that note, The apprenticeship programs that I know, and full disclosure, my son was a victim of a hate crime in college. So he didn't finish college, but he did finish an apprenticeship program. And now, if you see my son, he's just elated to be an electrician. An apprenticeship program, I honestly believe it, and no one can tell me different, totally saved my son's life. So I know that apprenticeships programs, they fund their own recruiting. I know that for a fact. And also for new apprenticeships. And this policy would grow the workforce, and also it would man all its projects. I know it. I know that for a fact. But also, apprenticeship programs will keep our children here in the Tampa Bay area, growing the Tampa Bay community, keeping our children home and safe with their families.
Thank you, Member Perez. And just to want to highlight a comment on some of the things my former member said. I agree. When you go out and you see the apprenticeship programs, if you go out to the iron workers or the crane operators, wherever you go, I know I've had the privilege to go out. It's very different than being trained for 6 weeks. It's a lifestyle. It's a training that you have for the rest of your life. Regardless if you're in Hillsborough County or you go to New York City, you are fully trained. It's not a 6-week, here you go, get on the floor, go from one project to another project. It's a lifestyle. It's giving people security. It's giving them an opportunity to have homes. It's giving people an opportunity to actually have a profession. So it is very different than just a contract. And I think the fear, of course we want, one of the biggest things as a school board member is we want to be fiscally responsible. How can we say this doesn't work until we see if it does work? First, we need to implement it, and then we need to do an analysis. Is it cost effective? How is it impacting our schools? How is it impacting students in a positive way? And then we look at that. We know the future the federal government is really looking at workforce development. The state is looking at workforce development. We are no longer looking at every single child going to college. We are re-envisioning education, and that's the way we need to do that. So this is a step in the right direction. I think we need to look at it, and as Member Vaughn said, if it doesn't work, if we are looking that it's prohibiting or it's not allowing, a full bid, or if it's looking like it's affecting our students or if it's affecting our budget negatively, then we can change policy. We are looking at this policy. We're going to have policy cycles at least twice a year. We can change that policy. I think we need to move in that direction because at the end of the day, it's about providing students a quality program. And as Ms. Bays is doing so much to talk about workforce development and all the 30 for 30 and all the things that we're doing, and we're talking about introducing in middle school the workforce development, then let's guarantee that these students can also have a great life and not just a job going from one contract to another. They actually have a training and they actually have a career. So next is Member Gray. You had a comment, and then Member Washington.
Yeah, and don't we love democracy? This is so good that we're kind of sharing the intelligence of us all and the appreciation of a workforce. So, in addition to a growing economy, and again, I go back to the data from the State of the Union, which some of the board members did not have, or not privy to, in terms of the actual construction growth. In addition to the growth of construction here in our Tampa Bay region, we also know, and I'll just say East Bay High School, parents are absolutely looking for schools that offer apprenticeship programs. East Bay, they have parents in line waiting for their welding program. So I will tell you, in addition to the obvious growth of construction, you have parental education that says, as Member Perez is saying, as a parent, I know my child will do wonderful with an actual kinesthetic skill versus college. So when we talk about minorities, the very population that every one of us board members went to with the job fairs, I'll just throw out Plant City, who do you think is the majority of those children applying for apprenticeships? Those are a lot of our high need students. So we are applying the very principles of helping our high needs children by advocating apprenticeship programs. And this is a great thing, and we all know that intellectually. Then when the argument comes that we are against the Florida statute, well, then that would mean that it would certainly be notified in the paper, and Mr. Porter, hopefully, or Mr. Gibson, who's in the arena here, should know. But the fact is, it's not being challenged. And the fact is, we have, I think one board member said that we are different in terms of the knowledge of our lay of the land versus county commissioners versus the city of Tampa. The county commission, Mary Alice Smith, is countywide, just as I am. She covers the same territory. So we are the same. We're not in a different land. We are in the same land. We know what's going on countywide. So, and the idea of the gold standard, well, this is the Federal Department of Education, the Labor Department, the Federal Labor Department. Member Combs said it's a lifestyle. That, yes, they do give life benefits. And this is, in my mind, it is the gold standard, and most people know that. Other agencies don't even come close to what the training, the fidelity of training that this apprenticeship program gives. And last, and I think that is last, I just wanted to say, and I thank you, Member Vaughn, for coming in. You know, we always look at things as a finite because laws are coming at us and so stringently, but nothing really anymore, and we know this in a democracy is not finite. We can always reevaluate. For goodness sakes, if we don't start out with some type of percentage, and by the way, that percentage is not in stone. If you read online, let's see, the 12%, 94, the 12% requirement of labor hours on the construction project that must be performed by apprentice may be reduced by the superintendent. So there's not a line in the stone. So you see that when we argue, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But you must have the facts, and you must remember that a well-reasoning bunch of folks, and inclusive Mr. Farkas, we know that if we don't see the fruits, the data, the fiduciary proof, then we can redo and we can look at it once again. So that's all, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gray. Mr. Washington, Member Washington.
Thank you. You okay, Chris?
Yes, have a few comments.
But anyway, I do believe in apprentice programs. I think it's important because many of my friends now, they came through apprenticeship. They're electricians, plumbers, and they're making really good money. And I support the apprenticeship program. What I'm kind of baffling me a little bit, how did we come up with this 12%? Who came up with the 12%?
That was, again, we modeled this after the county and the city with the partnership of the iron workers who recommended it.
And they recommended 12%. Okay. We're not going to debate that part yet. Okay. Mr. Farkas, on this 12%, how did we do during the time of the crisis? COVID.
You mean as far as our percentage of apprenticeship programs?
Yes, sir.
That's not something we track currently, and that's why it was concerning to say I didn't bring data to the table. We don't track apprenticeships. The data we have is that we've spent $700 million in the last 5 years that I've been responsible for, and I know the cost of construction in the last 2 years has gone up 25%. As you know, I was a principal and assistant principal for technical programs at Tampa Bay Technical High School, so to say that I don't support apprenticeship programs is kind of baffling to me. I 100% support them. I think they're an important part of what we do. The lab that was referenced at East Bay, I'm the one that designed it, and my company, my division paid for it. I 100% support apprenticeship programs. My job as the COO for this company, and this education entity, is to say, hey, this may cost us money, which is what my comment said. And now I'm getting looked at like I'm not supporting apprentice, when in reality that's 100% not true. My history of education when I was in the classroom was alternative ed, was working at Tampa Bay Tech and DJJ. I'm 100% of support of apprenticeship programs, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, hey, we need to look at it. And Ms. Vaughn's point was wonderful, which was we can look at it. If you enact it, my job would be to track the data and say, hey, did it result in an increase in cost, which is perfectly fine. But my job is just to say, hey, this may cause an increase in cost to us, and if it does, I'll be happy to report that back to you. But 100% don't want to be portrayed that I'm against apprenticeship programs when literally that is my educational history. And the reason we don't have data is because, Mr. Washington, to your question, long answer to your short question, we don't track apprenticeship data. We don't ask that information. OSD, supplier diversity data, we track because that's something the board has said has been a priority for us. That's an encouragement program as opposed to a requirement program. And as I would say, one more thing, and I'll let it go. Sorry, Sheikh.
Okay.
The lines that we referenced in it, 86 to 90, are important, which means the superintendent has the ability to say, hey, there isn't enough qualified people to do this. The WMBE hours don't count against those. Those are important changes from this policy as opposed to policies that have come before that allow the latitude for us to say, hey, there's not as many electricians, there's not as many workers on there too, which will help us in that situation. So I think this policy is different than what we've seen before, and it's much more amenable to us making it work. But our job is to track that. So if it passes, you will see from my division the cost of that. It's hard right now, and I look forward to the city and the county data to what they have, but the cost of construction has gone up exponentially in the last 24 months, as we all are aware.
Well,
sorry, the long answer to your short question.
Right, that's okay. That's okay. Good answer, though, Mr. Farkas. Like everything else is going up in life, so, that's nothing new. With this apprenticeship program, we're preparing students for life, and not only academically, but other ways in life. So I think the apprenticeship program is great, and I'm full 100% behind the apprenticeship program, because what we want students, any person to do, is be successful into productivity in society. And no matter what it takes, through the apprenticeship or through the educational side of the house, we want people to be successful. And we have to do a better job of communicating, because when we are supporting something as important as apprenticeship, and is really important, we should have better communications so people can know about those programs. And I don't think we've done a hell of a job doing that. I mean, I really don't. We really got to work hard putting out that information so students can know about it. Because a lot of kids I speak to now, they don't even know about the apprenticeship program. And that's a shame for a kid to be in high school and not know about the apprenticeship program. I mean, they don't even know what it is. So we need to do a better job when we communicate that. Okay? And thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Member Washington, and thank you about talking about the marketing. Also, Mr. Farkas, we all know how in support you are for the technical programs. We realize you're just talking about the fiscal responsibility. I think we have consensus, but we do have a couple comments. I think looking around, we do have consensus, but we do have two more members who would like to speak, and that's Member Hahn and then Member Vaughn, and then we'll go from there to the next policy. Member Hahn?
Thank you so much, Member Combs, for another opportunity to speak after listening to everybody's comments. I think this has gotten a little convoluted in our conversation because members seem to be making it sound like this is about our apprenticeship programs. We're not having a conversation. We're not writing policy about recruitment or expanding apprenticeship programs. And, I think all of us care about apprenticeship programs. All of us understand the workforce needs and the needs to create multiple pathways to graduation for our students. And certainly we, Mr. Farkas, I know you're very committed to the apprenticeship programs. I get it. This is about procurement. And, so this is about our processes around how we're procuring contracts to build schools or do maintenance or anything in that regard under construction. So, I just want to make sure that's clear to the public, because even I'm sitting here listening to members talk about their passion for apprenticeship programs, which I know all of us share that. We all have firsthand experiences with it. My brother taught in the apprenticeship program for Local 3 in New York City. I get it. But this is a conversation around how we're procuring projects. And that does touch the fiscal part of our job. And so I do appreciate Mr. Farkas saying what he said, even though it got you a little bit of a crosshairs there. because it is not, and I know there's been comments about, well, we can always try it and then undo policy. It's hard to unravel policy. It's not an easy process. So, I'm concerned about that too. But, I just wanted to say my position hasn't changed, but I really just want to be careful how we're presenting this. This is not policy around expanding or recruiting apprenticeship programs. This is policy around our procurement procedures. So I just want the community to be clear on that. So I appreciate the extra few minutes, Member Combs. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Member Vaughn, and then we'll complete with this policy and move on to the next one. Member Vaughn.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did want to clarify that I didn't say undo the policy. I said tweak and change policy, which is something that we do every policy cycle. We look at our policies and we see if there's any changes. And I mean, with all due respect, on the national level, we see a lot of policies that have been in place for years being undone as we speak, so it's not that difficult. However, the point that I wanted to make was I think that it's unfair to say that this is just a procurement and that this isn't going to affect our students, because the more work opportunity that we offer organizations that have apprenticeship programs within our school, the more apprentice people are going to sign up. It's like if you build it, they will come. The more work that we offer internally to organizations that have apprenticeship programs, obviously we're going to get more opportunities to our students who are in those apprenticeship programs. More students are going to see that. They're all going to want to take advantage of that, and that's going to help grow those programs. And I think what I find frustrating is we constantly find ourselves in this circle of saying, well, we have to be fiscally responsible, and what we have to do constantly is we have to cut quality, because we are being intentionally starved out by the state as an attack on traditional public education, as well as an attack on workers' rights and a livable wage, and all of these things go together. We have continually talked about a housing crisis and how people can't afford to live in our community, and here we're talking about expanding our procurement process so that students who are apprentice in our apprentice program can have more opportunity and more jobs at a higher wage with more benefits that's going to give them more opportunity and allow them to work and reside within our community. When we look at our systemic issues that we touch on all the time, when we make decisions about the housing crisis or gas prices or anything else, it's all interconnected. The more opportunity we offer our own students to work in jobs and positions within our community at a livable wage is going to uplift our entire community. So, to say that there's a disconnect, I don't understand that. All of these things are, interconnected together. And, I just think this is a fantastic opportunity. And as Member Washington said, why don't our students know about this? I've been talking about these opportunities at every school, at every conversation we've had when we talk about expanding workforce development, and I've seen almost no movement. And if that means that we have to create a policy, that means that we actually start taking advantage of the workforce that we have here that offers the best opportunity to the people in our community. We can't constantly just be, handcuffed by the state because they're intentionally underfunding us and making sure that we cut quality in every corner. At some point, we have to prioritize our students and the people in our community and start making decisions not based on the underfunding that we get. So those are my thoughts on it. Again, I appreciate the time, and hopefully we do have a consensus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Vaughn. I think with that ending, we can finish that policy, and we do have consensus. Is that correct, Mr. Porter?
That's my understanding, and we'll work with staff to make the suggested changes and bring it forward for the public hearing.
Okay, I know Superintendent Davis, you had another comment right before we close and move on to the next policy.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate the conversation. It pushes us in many ways to redefine our work internally. We'll start putting systems in place to track this information. At the same token, a lot of our students are involved and engaged in apprenticeships, and everyone, and I know you took it personal. It's not about you because I know where you are, but I think that it wouldn't be our job to make certain that we have particular highlights to the board about where we are related to particular costs or a subset of agencies that may not be able to bid. And we're just going to learn through this process. And if it needs to change and under, starting on, I think, line 89 through, 102, we need to adjust or add, then we'll think about that process and provide it to the board in a similar form to workshop it so we can strengthen the language if there's a need to be doing it. And I have no problems providing in writing if there's a part of the way we see that it hinders us from the build at all, or there's a significant cost in that process. But we do a really good job at apprenticeships. We'll definitely can do a better job with marketing, and we'll make certain that we make that a priority starting, yesterday. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Davis, and thank you, Member Perez and Member Gray, for bringing this policy forward, and that we will continue moving forward with that. Next is the new policy, which is the moment of silence. And Member Snively, you brought this policy forward. If you'd like to go ahead.
I'll introduce it while Member Snively gets ready. Member Snively brought this policy forward during the last cycle. It was continued because we didn't have time to get to it, and she agreed that we could consider it at this cycle. This is in reaction to a recently enacted Florida statute, 1003.45, that requires that each principal of each public school allow 1 to 2 minutes for a moment of silence before the start of the school day. The policy as written directly tracks the statute. I will note for the record that the superintendent, after this passed, initiated this in the school. So there are procedures in place to implement the statute, but there's no policy. So this is something that the board can consider if it wants to do based on the statute.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Member Snively, I'll begin with you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Porter, for introducing this. This is basically in response, as Mr. Porter said, to the Florida statute that was recently enacted, which is Florida Statute 1003.45. And it basically just wanted to bring this forward to the board to show the community, show the public that we support this particular legislation, especially because it benefits our students. When we talk about the emotional impact that especially the pandemic has had on our children, we talk about hectic activities and schedule that each student may have. I believe in personally, and I'd like to support the legislation that also shows and supports that an opportunity for a moment of quiet reflection is a good thing for our students, to support the social and emotional well-being of our students, to have that moment for them to choose whether they want to just have a moment of silence, just take a deep breath, say a prayer. If they have a religion that they practice and they'd like to pray to that religion, to themselves. I mean, this basically is just a very good mental health and well-being a policy that I just want to show our community in Hillsborough County that we do support the social and emotional well-being of our students by allowing them to have this moment of silence. So that's really why I wanted to bring it forth, is just to support it and show our community that we support the moment of silence, the mental health and well-being of our students by providing them that moment of quiet reflection before school starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Snively. Member Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Member Snively. I appreciate this so very much. As you probably remember, I taught at a religious school for a decade. Actually, I taught at Jesuit and Jesus Mary Joseph for 3 years, and my goodness, my son went to Coleman. He's been brought up Jewish. In all cases, and these are private entities, we did have a remarkable emphasis on prayer, because as a private school can, and a charter school, we can absolutely, or they can, make this a requirement. But if we, and I know that you're so versed in the law of the land, but looking at the First Amendment, if we are guided by that, we see that that Congress should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof. So, I mean, I'm looking at the actual constitutional law, and then I'm also looking at the fact that we are a public school, not a private school. And as much as I've always had a moment of silence in every school in a time of reflection. And I think that's very important. But the only snafu is making it a requirement, because in public school, what we would violate is the First Amendment. And that's the effective factual level, but on the affective, I would hate to have, for at least I'll just speak for myself, to require to tell a principal that they must have 2 minutes of prayer or anything. I think that a better wording may be we highly suggest, we advocate a moment of reflection. These kids need it more than ever. So I appreciate the spirit that you put into this, and I know that this board will come up with a way of delivering that expectation. But I will have to depart when it says compulsory or we must. The principals must. It would be too harsh, and it would be against the law of the land. The First Amendment. So that I'll conclude with those remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gray. Member Vaughn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So since this is state statute, from my understanding, and I'll ask you, Mr. Porter, if we were to enact this policy, this would just to demonstrate that we support the state's movement on this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what I did, because, moment of silence, does that lead to prayer? Is this prayer centered? Is I really reached out to some of my constituents in preparation for this policy, specifically some students in student body government that I've interacted with before when I've gone in and met, and asked for their feedback on this. And overwhelmingly, they said that they don't support this policy, that it does tend to overlap with religion, that if a student wants to take a few moments or has their own meditation, that's stuff that they can do it without it being a policy that is, brought forward by the state. And overwhelmingly, all of the students that I talked to said that they were not in favor of this, think that we didn't need a policy, were concerned that eventually this would erode the separation between state and church, and did not support this. And I also spoke to a few other constituents as well who weren't students to try to get some diverse feedback, and none of the people that I spoke with supported Hillsborough County making this their policy. So based on the feedback that I got from my constituency, since that's what we're here is to represent the people who elected us, I can't support this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. And I also, we know this is by HB 529. This is already in law. If we put everything in law into policy, we're looking at our policies now and seeing how we can clean them up. How we don't have policies that basically say the same thing twice. We cannot have every law be a policy, where the idea is for us to clean up. We're following the law that, DeSantis has set forth. So this is already happening. We don't need to put it as policy, and I fundamentally don't agree with it. So, we're doing it already. We don't need to add it for policy. There's many laws that are being enacted. If we enacted every policy that became a law, especially with so many things that are changing, we don't need to do that. We're already following that. It's already happening in our schools. We don't need to do this. This is just basically more of politicking, if you want to say. It's more trying to say, dividing things. We're already doing this. Let's just not add it as the policy. So I fundamentally disagree with this. So next is Member Hahn.
Oh, thank you so much, Member Combs. So, when I have a deep faith, but when I read this, there's nothing in the policy. There's nothing that says it has to be a time to pray or religion. So when I read it, and even interpreting the state mandate, is that, this is really a time for self-reflection, and self-reflection can just spark insight for students, and strengthen students' emotional intelligence, making it easier for them to, cope with a lot of stress and life changes. So especially I was thinking about this within the context of our workshop when we talked about mental health and just recently about the programs around substance abuse and the conversations that we had around so many of our students are struggling right now with, just different challenges. And, life for our young people is so busy and stressful. And so, I kind of found it as, a part of meditation. I mean, even if it's just for a few minutes, giving students just really some time where, they don't have to, it's kind of that allowed time. It's almost like when you have to turn off your cell phone and how good that feels, and for our students to just be given some time and space during the day where, they could just be thinking about, something that happened between them and a friend earlier in the day during this reflection time, or, just some peaceful time to think about what's happened throughout the day or what's coming the next day. And it kind of gives them a little bit of time to decompress. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. I don't understand why you're saying this is political. I think that is just divisive saying that in itself, or maybe a strategy to get people to, think of it in that way. But, I didn't even think of it as a religious thing, so I don't understand how it conflicts with the First Amendment. I just really thought about it as kind of just, showing that, we actually recognize the stress and the need for some downtime for our students around their mental health and recognizing the stress. So, I actually think I'm a little surprised because I thought it would be a policy we would all actually, given that I know we all really understand and are worried about our students' mental health, would kind of be something we could rally around. So I'm a little taken aback because I didn't expect some of the comments, but, I guess I was just thinking about it in a different way, just kind of I know we all seek out some downtime just to preserve our mental health, and sometimes, it eats away at our physical health. So that's really how I approached it. I'm really sad that, we're kind of way off base with each other around this, but, I think it's helpful for our students to carve out space. Principals are already doing it, and I know you might say, well, then why do we need a policy? Well, I guess in my mind, to be honest, I just thought it was a way for the board to show that, we're recognizing that students need some downtime, that this is stressful, and that mental health is a priority. But I can see I'm going to be in the minority of that, unfortunately. So, that's just how I kind of approached it. But I appreciate everybody's comments, and thank you, Member Combs, for the time.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Member Perez?
So I'm the big mental health advocate here, so I'm going to reflect on that. So, why a moment of silence and not a moment of meditation and reflection? If I can ask that question.
So again, policy is being brought forward to implement a Florida statute. The language in the statute is tracked in the policy, but I'll read the statute. This is statute 1003.45. The principal of each public school shall require teachers in first period classrooms in all grades to set aside at least 1 minute, but not more than 2 minutes daily for, quote, a moment of silence, during which students may not interfere with other students' participation. A teacher may not make suggestions as to the nature of any reflection that a student may engage in during the moment of silence. So again, that the policy is being brought forward to mirror the statute.
Thank you, Member Perez. Member Snively?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I wanted to address Ms. Gray's comments with regard to church versus state and the First Amendment. Mr. Porter, can you reiterate that this does not violate the First Amendment of the Constitution?
Well, I can say this, Member Snively, this has not been challenged by anyone. The language is very specific that this is a moment of silence, not prayer. Students have always been able to pray in classrooms. That prayer just cannot be driven by administrators or teachers or outside adults. So the statute is very cleanly and clearly worded that it is a moment of silence, and they make it clear that a teacher may not make suggestions as to the nature of the reflection. So anytime that you have an instance where there's a moment of silence, that would be not in violation of the First Amendment if it's implemented as written in the statute and as in the policy. If there, however, is a situation where adults, teachers, staff, outside people attempt to lead students in prayer, then that would be something that we would need to take very seriously and have to look at.
Right, in which we do that. We take that very seriously. And so, I will be honest, I have the same sentiments with Dr. Hahn. I'm a little bit taken aback. I didn't expect us to make this political at all. I resent that comment because now it's obviously been made political. I thought we could wrap our arms around this as a board to recognize that students need to take a moment of quiet reflection before plunging into the activities of their daily life. And for a board who continues to promote and support mental health, but does not want to promote and support this particular statute that says we do, to me, that's very hypocritical. And I'm quite offended by the whole thing. So I'm sad that this is where we are, that we can't rally around this one particular initiative to encourage reflection to our students. And, I spoke to many of my constituents as well, and they all appreciate to have a moment of reflection prior to starting their hectic day. So, if we talk about representing our constituencies, well, my constituents would really appreciate it. And you know what? Sometimes teachers and staff appreciate that moment of reflection and moment of silence too before they have to start their hectic day. So I'm really disappointed and quite offended that we have no consensus on this particular issue. There are several points in the statute that call it a moment of quiet reflection. It's not just a moment of silence, and students can choose whatever they want to do in that 1 minute. And each first period classroom teacher is supposed to be encouraging parents and guardians to discuss that with them so that they know what to do during that first minute, and it can be whatever they want it to be. But like I said, for a board who can constantly something like
We can't
this.
hear you. Oh, we didn't hear the last couple minutes. If you want to repeat, a couple seconds, should I say? For a board, that's where you left off.
For a board who touts itself as a board who supports mental health and emotional well-being of students, but doesn't support codifying this particular statute into our local policy so that we can emphasize how much we care about our students' mental health, that is very hypocritical to me. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Snively. Member Gray?
Member Snively, yeah, I would be very sad too. I don't know whether I'll just have to speak for myself. But you mentioned the word encouraged 2 times, and I think maybe there lies the solution. And I'll just present this as a possibility. So when we look at line 10. And then, Member Snively, do you have it before you? Do you have the policy right in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so what about if we look at line 10, the principals are encouraged to have teachers in first period classrooms in all grades to set aside at least 1 minute, but not more than 2 minutes. So, and then picking up from what Member Perez said, looking at line 12, line 11, for a moment of silence, but maybe a moment of reflection. I had this when I taught all those years. I always had a moment of, we used to do prayer, to be honest with you. That was in the 70s and 80s. That's how old I am. But then we got into the reflections. I think that if we put that into words in a policy, encouraged, I do think the spirit of what you're saying and what's in our hearts, each of the board members would be represented. The only problem I have is when we say require, because requiring teachers to do, principals to do, to make teachers require, it makes it more, it makes it more of a lean against them, perhaps, not against them, but making them do something that maybe they would rather say, let's do a moment of reflection, let them have some leeway. So that's my suggestion.
Okay. Thank you, Member Gray. And I think just for clarification, we need to know that this bill is already in place and this is already happening. We are just saying if we're going to be putting it into policy. Am I correct, Mr. Porter?
That's correct. So the
Yes.
superintendent, and he can speak to this
Yes.
if he's ready to speak, sent a letter on June 21st last year directing principals to implement the statute.
Yes.
This is happening in Hillsborough County Schools. It's been happening for almost a year. The policy is being brought forward by Ms. Snively to have the school board recognize through your formal policy-making authority that this is what's happening in Hillsborough County. If you do nothing today, the practice will continue. If you enact a policy, it will continue. So it's just a reflection of the board's will of whether you want to enact this as policy or not.
Yes. No, we.
Well, I think I would caution,
it
Ms.
goes
Gray,
with the
I would caution changing it because the statute makes it mandatory.
Correct.
Yeah, and if we make it, if the board then tries to make it permissive as opposed to mandatory, I think you're going to be sending a very muddled message to our schools.
This is already happening. The question is, do we want to also put it as a policy? It's not going to change anything, but every law that comes from Tallahassee, do we want to put it as a policy? It's not going to change it. It's happening every day in our schools, as we know, so it's just, we're going to put it as policy. And so I guess for me, I look at it as, do we want everything, we have so many policies and we're trying to look through and make sure our policies are clean and clear. Do we need to have every law as a policy? And that's why I said that. And I hope that, members didn't take offense when I say it's about politicking. I think that we know this is a law. Why do we have to create it as a policy? And the question to say that members who don't agree with that aren't concerned about the well-being, that is also offensive. Because, of course, we care about the well-being when we look at a minimum from 180 minutes to 360 minutes that are lost every day or in a year. For a first-period teacher, they're losing 360 minutes of instructional time. Can we use that instructional time to teach breathing or to teach about, SEL or whatever we're talking about, to teach that kind of self-reflection? We already are doing this. So the idea is every law that comes from Tallahassee, are we going to make that as a policy? And do we need to do that when we're really looking at looking at policies and clearing up our policies right now instead of having everything doubled over? So that's the big question. We already do this. The idea is, do we want it as a policy? And so that's why I said it's about politics, because I think it doesn't need to be a policy. It's already in effect. Nothing's going to make a difference. Adding this or not adding this is not going to change what we're doing in Hillsborough County. To sit here and spend 20 minutes discussing something that's already in effect, it just doesn't make sense to me. And it also doesn't make sense to me to add it as a policy. So that's where I stand on that. And I think we just need to go around, and if anybody has any comments, to see, do we want this as a policy? This is already in place. We need to keep the wording as is. We don't want to change the wording from what's at the state to the local level, because that is only going to cause more confusion, and that could cause, a lawsuit or whatever. The idea is, do we need to have this as a policy? Yes or no? Do we need to add it? Simple as that. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair, this is part of the last year's legislative updates and changes that we implemented, and this is why I sent a communication out in June of last year, because it was supposed to be enacted on July 1. So making certain that all of our principals were aware, because we had summer school in session, and we wanted to make certain that every session was in compliance with statutory requirements. We did send another reminder out, I believe, at the beginning of the year for August as well, for our staff to implement, and they will continue to do so. We do think this is a mindfulness opportunity for our children just to reflect in their own personal ways. So from our side of it, if there's any changes that we see with legislative updates, we'll provide that through either me or KD, and continue to implement it to make sure we're in requirements with we're in alignment with statutory requirements.
Okay, Member Vaughn, and then after that, Mr. Porter, if you'll just take consensus of if we want this as a policy or not, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm so confused. I mean, we started off this conversation when Member Snively opened it up, and granted, she talked about a moment of silence and reflection, but she heavily indicated it being an opportunity for people to pray or be religious, or definitely talked about that. If this was just a moment for meditation, I'm not sure why it's open that way. As well as I'm not sure why this is being touted as this amazing mental health step that we would be taking forward. A moment of silence, again, is free will. If students want to do that, if that's something that they feel like they need, they're able to do that. To go and mandate and say you have to take this moment of silence is completely against the spirit of freedom and patriotism and liberty and the Constitution. It goes in the other direction. And I can guarantee you, if you talk to students like we do quite often, when they're begging for mental health help, it's not wrapped up in a 2-minute moment of silence in the opening of the school day. They can give you a long laundry list of things that we can do to address the mental health crisis that doesn't look like this. And to have this response to say, I'm so offended and so surprised my fellow board members aren't supporting this because this isn't political, the very act of trying to create a policy to mirror state legislation is an act of politicizing it itself. It's already law. It's already been made into law. Saying whether or not we support that law and the direction of it is a political action itself. It doesn't have any bearing or meaning on the law itself or it being carried out. So I'm just confused by this reaction in general. Is this a chance for students to pray? Is this some amazing mental health thing that if we don't support it, all of a sudden we don't support mental health? I don't understand why people are getting offended. I understand Member Snively wanted to bring this policy forward. She thinks it's a good policy. I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing forward policy that you think your constituency wants. Again, my constituency doesn't seem to want that. If we need to, we can send out a survey and see if the community supports this, but I don't think that's needed. So I'll just close with saying that I don't think we need this policy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, and Mr. Porter, do you want to go around?
So the question is, board members, this is a workshop, and traditionally what we've done in policies, if there's consensus to bring a policy forward for the public hearing where you actually vote, then we move the policy forward. In the past, sometimes board members have withdrawn a policy. Other times, the policy has gone forward, and you actually vote it up or down at the public hearing. So now's the time. It seems to me, listening to the conversation, that the policy doesn't enjoy full support of the board. So the question is whether the board wants to bring it forward to the public hearing to vote it up or down. So.
Okay, I am seeing that the board does not, so that...
I would just ask Member Snively, as the member who brought it, do you wish to withdraw it, or do you just wish the action of the board to stand that there's not consensus?
Member Snively, what would you like to do with this policy? Would you like to withdraw it?
No, I would not like to withdraw this. I would like it to go on the record that this board does not support moving forward with this policy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
For the record, Member Hahn had to drop off. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next policy. And that is policy 1124, 3124, 4124, the drug and alcohol free workplace. And that was brought up by Dr. Whalen.
Thank you, Chair Combs. So this policy is to add the term alcohol to our existing policy, and the reason that it is in 3 different policies is because our 1100 policy covers our administrative employees, our 3000 policies cover our instructional staff, and then our 4000 policies are for our instructional support staff. So it is to add it and alcohol, drug and alcohol free workplace to the title, and then also in the first paragraph to add the term and alcohol to both of the sentences there.
Thank you, Dr. Whalen. Are there any questions or comments from any members? Okay, if not, then that policy will pass, and we'll move on to the final policy for today, which is 563001, which is the seclusion and restraint of students with disabilities. And thank you.
And I just want to say Mrs. Workman won an award last night, which came from Jack Lamb, award winner, last night. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. And Dr. Tirado?
Thank you. I'd like, if I may, can I get us started and introduce my team?
Absolutely. Please do.
Thank you. So this is an example of a state statute that actually does require the board to make policy action, because The federal law, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, requires that anybody who participates in IDEA with the federal funding, that any state statute that adds to the federal language, and that's what this does. And Florida is one of the few states that actually has statutory language to around restraint and seclusion of students with disabilities. So Florida has the statute. There was a revision to the statute, and federal language requires that school districts who have a state statute update their school policies to participate in IDEA and to be in compliance with the law. So just wanted to, because since we had just talked about why would we pass it, even think about a policy that's already in statute, this is one where you're required to, okay? And I'm really excited to introduce two of our team members. Of course, we've got Kim Workman, who is our Director of Exceptional Student Education, and Kim Loy, who's supervisor, who really leads a lot of the work around our policy and compliance and implementation. And I'm going to let them discuss this policy with you.
Thank you. So this policy 5630.01, the recommended changes will align with House Bill 149, which was also the sister bill to Senate Bill 192 for students with disabilities in public schools. The amendments to the bill and now the proposed changes to our policy revise the requirements related to the use of seclusion and restraint, and also there are requirements related to in-service training for teachers of students with developmental and emotional and behavioral disabilities.
And I'll just take some time to highlight there are quite a few revisions to the current policy as it sat to incorporate all of these changes. Significant is that we are prohibited all schools from the use of seclusion. So that whole section, of course, has been stricken. It also provided us with some more specific definitions around some terms that had been previously used specific to restraint, talking about the mechanical restraint and types of restraints that may or may not be used as they remain allowable, but with those conditions included. It also asked, we have to publicize our policies around positive behavior interventions, and it requires that prior to the use of restraint that those interventions be in place. Part of our reporting requirements we bring forward are all of the events or antecedents that happen prior to having to use restraint on students with disabilities, and it includes that we have put in place all the positive interventions prior to that use. There's a new requirement requiring us to develop a crisis intervention plan for any student who has had to have a restraint more than 2 in one semester. So it asks us to look at not continuing to use a practice, but to make sure that we're planning appropriately for those students. And it does require training and our public announcement of who has been trained, and who can use such practices in our schools.
So many of the training requirements and the proactive strategies and the crisis intervention plans were something that we've already had in place.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any members? Okay. Member Vaughn, we'll start with Member Vaughn.
Thank you. So from my understanding, this is really taking out the seclusion piece, correct? There still is the restraining piece. If a student is in danger of harming themselves or harming someone else, that would be the only time we would use something like that. So I guess my question would be, normally those go hand in hand, right? You restrain and then take the student out of the environment where they could potentially hurt someone else. Is that what the seclusion piece would normally be used for?
Seclusion has been used incredibly sparingly. I mean, just maybe a couple of students a year. Restraint will help to get them to a place where they can calm down, but it's not a seclusion room where they're unable to leave. Many schools have some sort of a calming area or a room where students can go, and they're not forced to stay in the room, but that we have activities and different interventions to use with the student to help them calm down.
And then this is also expanding the training on anybody who would be able to provide restraints on our student to make sure that they're trained to do it.
Yes, we've already had that training in place, nonviolent crisis intervention training for teams of teachers at specific sites where, we may have more incidents of the restraint.
So I guess my question would be is how do you specifically see any changes in this impacting what we do in our district already?
The biggest change is the seclusion room.
Okay.
But most of the other pieces, the requirement for the crisis intervention after 2 restraints in 1 semester, we didn't have that, finite requirement. But students that had repeated restraints, we have a team that analyzes the data at all the schools, and that's one of the steps we take is to put a crisis intervention plan in place.
Okay.
And Ms. Vaughn, I just wanted to add that part of our reporting every single year to the state is that we have to put forward a plan on how we were going to reduce these numbers every single year.
I remember that last time.
So now we'll be doing that with restraint, and the seclusion will not be there. So we've been working on it.
I appreciate your questions. One of the things that we are going to be discussing more is the ability to have a centralized database where we can track at the district level for every student who's restrained, that they do have an FBA and a BIP. We don't have a central process for that right now. So it is really going school by school by school to collect that data district-wide. And so that's one of the areas that we are going to be looking at.
Will that data collection allow us to analyze to make sure that we're using restraint? I mean, I'm sure we are as a district, but just to make sure, to add a layer of accountability to make sure that we're using the restraint process only when needed?
So we do have a process for getting the restraints and looking at it. What we don't have is the database of those behavior plans. So we have a team that meets monthly. They analyze the data. They bring all that information. This way we're going to have it, it's going to be much user-friendly to be able to have it at our fingertips.
So these are all good things.
Yes, so
yes,
the answer
absolutely.
is yes, we'll be able to review this information, make informed decisions, look at is there particular areas or schools that need additional professional development or continued coaching to make certain we're implementing strategies where we put students in a situation to excel academically and behaviorally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member Perez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If anyone doesn't follow the protocol, what happens?
It will be a training issue to make sure that they do understand the protocol and that they have the proper training and that they're instructed.
Okay. Who's trained?
It is, well, actually there are school staff teams that are trained. So we have administrators that are trained, teachers, and paraprofessionals that all may be trained to be part of that team.
Okay. Are like transportation personnel trained, folks like that?
So transportation personnel are trained in dealing with challenging behaviors for students. They are not necessarily trained on the restraint techniques. They are trained in de-escalation.
Okay. Okay. Are they eventually going to be trained?
That's certainly something that we can add to their trainings.
Okay. Because there was an incident recently where a student ran off the bus, and that restraining issue was needed to be.
And absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and there may be times that any student could be in a crisis situation where whoever the personnel is there has to keep them safe.
Safe, right? Correct. And how often is the training provided? Is that once a year? Is that one and done? How often is that?
Great question. The professionals have to be recertified annually.
Perfect. Okay. And how long has the change in policy been in place?
The legislation was changed effective in July of 21, the beginning of this year.
Thank you, Member Perez. Member Gray? Oh, Dr. Tirado?
I had another response, though. Hillsborough County, actually, and this was before I had the pleasure of joining, was very proactive in really reducing and nearly eliminating seclusion rooms many years ago. So before the statute even required it, we're proactive in that. So you should feel really good about that.
Our restraint numbers have come down dramatically as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for the update. Member Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kim. I want to call you that all the time, Ms. Workman. Yeah, I know, but you know, the movement for inclusion is ongoing, and it's very strong. And so when you had the word seclusion, it's like you know, that's old school, and it's just if you look at the definition, which I happen to do, it's just the opposite. So I'm glad that you're doing that, right? And I think the parents are very appreciative. The other question I had was on line 204, and it might be a Miss Monica question. When we look at a district monitoring team comprised of regional, and then you're saying centralized, help me with that visual. So if we're putting in policy regional, but you mentioned you're trying to centralize. I know this is a.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
We have a team that's a multidisciplinary team. So it has regional staff members that are responsible for overseeing the schools and supporting their ESE teams and administrators. We have district staff that are specialized in autism, emotional behavioral disabilities, intellectual disabilities. We have behavior analysts. We have mental health staff. We have social worker psychologists. It's all part of this team that comes together. This centralizing of the information just makes the work much easier. It makes the monitoring of the progress and where we need to provide additional supports much more available.
So would you not recommend maybe use the very word centralized within that clause of 204, 205, 206, if that is the end result? And you know, we are moving more to centralization in terms of transportation, and many of our Tommy Weeks is you know, trying to get our whole computer programs more centralized and organized. What do you think?
So, I mean, we could have some centralized data collection, but this speaks to the actual staff as being regional staff.
Got it. Okay. Monica?
I think I understand what your concern is, and I think it's really semantics, and we can work to tweak that. I think it's a matter of some of our staff that are assigned directly to work day in and day out in particular schools,
right? And
then staff who are completely district-wide. And I think we can work on tweaking the language to get at what you're saying.
Yeah, just a bunch, just rhetoric from me right now, but I was just
Thank
had that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Gray. Is there anybody else? Any other comments? I want to thank all of you for coming today and really for making sure that we do this update. I know that we're doing the right things in Hillsborough County, and thank you for bringing this policy forward so that way we continue moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Porter has a couple more comments as we conclude. Okay.
I was just going to use the gavel.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I think it's been a very productive policy workshop. And then, please, we will continue. Our next policy workshop will be in August. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for the staff and cabinet and everybody for coming today. Thank you. Have a nice day. Meeting's adjourned.